Welcome to AIW Empowers interview series. I'm so happy to welcome our guest today, Marian Meade. Hi, Marian, how are you?
I'm doing great. It's great to be here, Lynn.
Oh, it's absolutely my pleasure to have you on. Let's jump right in. Let's talk about your journey. Can you describe your current job?
Yes, I'm a registered nurse psychotherapist and I'm in private practice. So I have my own business.
Wonderful. I definitely want to dive deeper into that. But before, I want to go backwards. So
Yes.
let's travel back to the start of your career. How did it start and how did you get here?
Wow. Okay. So I started out as a registered nurse, and how I even got into that was because one of my friends told me, "Oh, my sister is in the nursing RN nursing program at Algonquin College and she really likes it." And I said, "Oh, that sounds great. I think I'll do it." Like that's all the research I did going into it. So I became a registered nurse, not knowing anything about illness or hospitals or anything. I graduated there and I worked as an RN for 5 years, medicine, surgery, intensive care. And along the way, about 5 years in, I went back to school and got a Bachelor of Science in Nursing in Edmonton at the University of Alberta. While I was there, I took a psychology course that I absolutely fell in love with. So the prof was teaching about Albert Ellis. He was the grandfather of cognitive psychology. So if you've ever heard about, people talking about how our thoughts create our feelings and determine our actions, that was him. So anyway, I took that training, I fell in love with it, and then I just kind of let it go. And then my son was born 34 years ago. So it was a couple of years later, he was born. And while I was really happy to be a mom, I realized that there was something missing. I didn't, I, although people would describe me as happy and, easygoing and whatnot, on the inside, I felt that I didn't have the personal leadership that I wanted to have. I Once my son was born, I thought that's not good enough for Max. And so that's when I took a really deep dive into psychology and I just fell in love with it. It it was really my bliss, it turned out. So finally finding my what was exactly the right thing for me. Having done that though, or having said that, it wasn't like just like a straight path to exactly what I wanted. It was a process. I had three kids by then. Um, it took some time to decide, okay, I'm going to step out of the current focus I'm on and get into this. And how am I going to do it? I had kids at home. My husband traveled. So I started doing volunteer work. I worked on the distress line. I worked at the family center in, for a postpartum depression support group. I took baby steps forward with anything related to mental health, emotional fitness, psychology. I just took every opportunity that I could, and I just kept loving it more and more. And then I started working on um, a child and teen unit, on a psychiatric unit as a casual staff, and things just went on from there. Um, then I took more courses. And at one point, I started doing little workshops, presenting them to the public, free of charge, just getting my feet wet. And then that was in Edmonton. And then when I moved to Calgary, somebody recommended me for the mental health day program there because I had taken some of Albert Ellis's training. I got hired there. And as soon as I walked into the unit, so it was a day program, I'm like, this is my proper habitat. Like I just felt like, oh, this is it. Still with tons to learn, but just a huge, huge passion for it and just eating it all up. And after that, because I was there and so keen, someone said, "Oh, we're doing a training in dialectical behavioral therapy. We're doing a manual study, and that's cognitive behavioral therapy plus validation and mindfulness." So I took that training, and then I got hired for a temporary position, and then a full-time one came up. Like, it was just, all these steps. And in one big piece about DBT, learning how to manage our emotions was a really big part of it, as well as mindfulness. That was just amazing for me personally and professionally, seeing the impact that it had on the clients. I also, in addition to individual work, I also ran groups, skills groups. So I just benefited so much and had so many opportunities, got to go for trainings, got to go to San Francisco and to learn more about DBT and other places. And then I'm sure I'm leaving out a lot of pieces. And then my husband had a chance to have his dream job in Oklahoma. So we went there and left everything behind. And I didn't want to work in their system doing anything other than what I was already doing, because I was on this dream team and I wasn't willing to do something different. So I decided to study relationship coaching. Um, so I became a certified coach and started a little bit of a business, just kind of dipped my toe in it. And then after that, I studied with the Couples Institute from California that was online. The training was just amazing. Um, and I think I should stop for a breath here. Um, at that point, soon after that, we moved back to Ottawa. This is my hometown. So I've been here now for 10 years. Um, and dabbled in private practice for some time. At one point, I became a director of counseling for a nonprofit, working with people affected by addictions, whether it was their own addiction or if it was a family and friends that were affected by someone else's addiction. That was amazing. I provided counseling for individuals and couples there, and also was the director for some time. And I just stepped down from that position in April. It was a really cool experience. Other things I did was join groups. So I became the vice president of Mental Health Professionals Ottawa.
Oh.
I studied public speaking through Toastmasters. What I want to say about all this is that I suppose we'll get into a little bit more later, Lynn, but this was not a planned
Mhm.
career. And I think a lot of your listeners will perhaps have had the same experience, or people listening who are starting out. It may be good for them to know that it was just, one opportunity leading to another opportunity. I Deciding to do that volunteer work was amazing because I got to know other professionals, and then they would refer clients to me. I became I didn't know anything about business, but I realized when I came back to Canada, I just wanted to work for myself because I had other commitments that I needed to attend to, personal ones, and so I really wanted that flexibility. And
Mhm.
I also kind of want to do things my way. Um, Now, having worked at Serenity Renewal, that was a part-time gig, and the hours were flexible, and it was awesome. So that actually was part of my private practice work, doing this contract work.
Okay.
So that fulfilled my desire to have that freedom. Um, and let's see now what else I want to say. Oh yeah, then I decided to accept the opportunity to become president of Women's Business Connections Orleans. And that was a networking and education group for women in business. And I actually really knew nothing about business. So it was a great opportunity. And I'm kind of in between introvert and extrovert, and being out there in front of people, that was all new for me. So all these little steps, all these little opportunities have been just amazing. Getting to do things in, kind of bits and pieces, and being around people who were supportive. That was just a really excellent piece in the creation of where I am right now. Something that I did skip over was I did take a radio interview, what was it called? I think it was called radio interviewing or something along the lines of that. I took training with a fellow named Wayne Kelly out of BC to help get a message across, like if you're on the radio or television. So I did a bit of that. So I've been on television a few times and radio. Left that aside for quite a while, and now I'm ready to get back into it. I'm going to be starting a YouTube channel soon, but the point I'm making is all these little skills, you put them all together and you can build on them, and everything doesn't have to happen at once.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so rare for people to have just a linear path, and it is what we expect of ourselves. So it's
Yeah.
really almost unattainable for most people. And also we change as we grow, and we have to allow ourselves to change our minds or look at, in different directions. And through everything that you've picked up along the way, you've built yourself a really solid foundation for your career path. With this in mind, how did that help? How did you integrate that into your work, and how would you say that determined the uniqueness of how you approach your work?
Hmm. I'm not sure if I'm answering your question, but what I will say is, initially, when I was young, and like a lot of people, I thought, oh, I'm not smart enough to do this. I'm not smart enough to go to university. Other people are better at this. Oh, these jobs are all taken. Or this costs too much or whatever. And I wouldn't have been the one to jump into doing things.
Mm-hmm.
And I never had career aspirations. I was never encouraged to have them. Um, I I would say that I just kept putting one foot in front of the other.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely had times where I had to take a step back from my career to like to address personal obligations, but also there were times where I maybe definitely lacked the confidence to go forward. Like when I first started in business, I hid behind my computer. And I'm watching all these other people, oh, they're doing this and they're doing workshops and they're doing that, and I don't know what I'm doing. And um I guess what I'm getting at is that now looking back, I understand that it's so important for us to be self-compassionate and to know that we're not supposed to know, just like you said, we
Mm-hmm.
can't know the things that we don't know. And we really are on a journey of
Mm-hmm.
self-discovery, and we really owe it to ourselves to just take it one step at a time and give ourselves permission to learn new things.
Yeah.
And again, like you said, we can't learn it all at once. I was extremely shy, and I was almost afraid of my own shadow. I mean, people wouldn't know that about me, but that's kind of how it was in a lot of ways, unless I knew the people. Um, so I mean, I had so many comfort zone issues that I needed to learn how to expand in order to do more things, in order to meet people, in order to be on stage, in order to get my message across, in order to do workshops at Serenity and be on the board over there, like join the board for meetings and on and on and on. So
And I'm sure that self-awareness, especially in your field, must have helped quite a bit, being able to look internally and then apply it to your career. But did it lead to you treating your clients differently because of what you knew about yourself?
Yes. I understood that, and I continue to grow and understand this, and I feel like I really get it now. But we are all unique. We all have gifts,
Mhm.
and the focus really needs to be on helping people unearth those gifts rather than focusing on the negative, which we are all really good at doing. That's how we're wired biologically, to focus on the negative. And the problem with that is it creates our self-concept, and we tend to believe all you know, um, these negative thoughts that we have, and that stops us from going forward in life. So yes, it's given me a lot of compassion. And as I learned these pieces, I've been able to pass them on to my clients. Like, that is the biggest way I learned, was through reading books, taking courses, and then integrating them into my life. So yeah, I can think of a good example. When one of my kids was very young, he developed chronic pain. And I was like a dog chasing my tail, trying to figure out how to help him. And it was really difficult, and it didn't feel very effective. Since then, I've learned so much more about how to deliberately create your life, how to use self-talk and visualization more, how to use universal laws, like gravity is a universal law of gravity, law of attraction. That's a universal law. Even if you go back to people you know, like thousands of years ago, they'll tell you we become what we think about. So I learned that how powerful all of that was. I had learned it years ago, but I just gradually it improved and increased my understanding and integration of it. So I think everything that I've integrated, I teach it. And so the fact that I've done that is what does make me so effective in the work that I do, for sure.
I can imagine. And do you feel like those are part of your philosophies when it comes to psychotherapy and life in general? And do you have others that you'd like to add to that? Um, and I keep mentioning your foundation because it's so, vast, and, you've built it over so many years to have this really good base of knowledge. And so I'm very curious to see your general philosophies when it comes to your work and to your life.
Yeah. So my philosophy is that life is meant to be enjoyed.
Mm.
And, we don't get told that. I did not get told that growing up. I saw and experienced life is a struggle, and you've got stuff you got to do, you know. I mean, sure, there were definitely fun times, but at the end of the day, there were lots of things that, could be better. But I've since learned that I can deliberately create my life, and I can feel good in spite of external circumstances, in spite of people not doing what I think they should be doing. Um, I want to make a point here that I am not talking about toxic positivity,
Mm.
where you're just supposed to put a happy face on no matter what's happening. That's not what I'm talking about. It's so important for us to be able to express, at least to ourselves, our emotions, how we're feeling, and then kind of process them, see if they even make any sense. Like, in other words, I might feel resentful because I think somebody shunned me. Okay, well, let me look at that thought, and let me see if there's any validity to it. Um, and then decide what I'm going to do about it, kind of thing, rather than being stuck in those kind of feelings.
Mhm.
So I really believe that our thoughts are everything. they become things, they determine our future. And most of us use our imagination to like imagine the worst, right? Our mind wants to take us back into regret or into the future to worry. And that's where mindfulness exercises come in. You know, Buddhists talk about those mindfulness exercises being the saddle on the horse. You gotta rein it in so that we can be in charge of what we're thinking about rather than our mind just taking us all over the
Mhm.
place. So I guess my philosophy is a very hopeful one. And speaking from my own experience, my life is so much better now than I ever thought it would be, and that it ever has been before, because I've learned one skill, which is one of the skills I've learned is called mind your own business, and that's about sounds kind of cheeky, but what it is we have been raised in an environment where we've been trained to look for approval
Mhm.
from mom and dad, brothers and sisters, our teacher, our school chums, you know, boyfriends, girlfriends, partner, children, grandchildren, like it just, you know, goes on forever, or your neighbor or anybody. And that has created a bit of an epidemic, like, you know, around the world of people caring too much about what other people think. And then, you know, worried about like what are people thinking about me, or caring too much about what they're doing and judging them. And it just takes up so much time and energy. And so when we learn how to mind our own business, we're clearing clutter from our brain,
Mhm.
right? And creating that calm so that we can focus on what it is that we want. Being able to develop that self-definition, figure out, you know, who am I? What do I want? What do I like? It's so important, but it's definitely not something that I did for the longest time. And couples get into trouble there as well. And again, that's the reason how so the reason why I got into counseling in general was because I wanted to feel better. Um the reason I got into doing couples work is because I wanted to help couples avoid unnecessary drama and have the loving relationships that they wanted, or, you know, be able to figure out that, okay, this is, you know, this isn't work. I mean, in some cases it's just not meant to be, but for
Mhm.
those couples where it's how can I put it? For some couples, it minor tweaks could make a massive difference. So often it's an intra psychic issue. It's the way I'm thinking about my partner or the way they're thinking about me that's causing the clashes. So yeah, highly motivated to help couples with that, since my husband and I dealt with that, and we were at you know, we were treacherously close to thinking about divorce at one time. Yeah.
I mean, it's everything you said is I love it. It's so wonderful. The thought process that goes into it and your approach to it and how it grew over time. And I really like the saddle analogy and the mind your own business, because I think it creates an imagery in people's head. And you can picture the saddle and say, okay, rein it back. You can physically do that, which would help with, that part of the exercise. And the mind your own business, I think, has a connotation for everyone. And so you can kind of like give yourself a little non-physical like wake up call of like, whoa, it's not my
Yeah.
business. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and I mean, I had to learn that too. I realized that, and I think that that's one of the biggest messages I want to share is that we're all on a voyage of self-discovery. We are complex. There's so much to us in
Mhm.
our whole lifetime. We need that lifetime just to unearth the depth and the breadth of us, and the, you know, areas of interest for us. Um, and we want to um give ourselves that space to do so, you know?
Mm-hmm,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And now I want to travel backwards again a little bit, and go into more of a little bit of the negative stuff just for a little bit, and
Oh,
then we'll
go
move
for
on.
it. Yeah.
And we've talked about this, in our previous meetings and before we've known each other for a few years.
Yeah.
What mistakes did you make early in your career that now you look back on and you can pinpoint?
Yeah. And I reflected on the question. And I'm happy with the question because I do have things to say about it. Um, Although when I was young, I look back and I think, well, it couldn't have been a mistake then because I was so new to life.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know myself. My level of consciousness, I would say, was very low. I was just kind of like walking around with a kind of like a, with a little bubble over my head, like, la la la, kind of thing. I didn't have any ideas about, okay, I'm gonna go, I wasn't proactive as a young person. I didn't think I'm going to go to the career counselor and find out, what steps to take and all this. I didn't have any of that in my mind at all. So, and I don't know that anyone could have, I guess it would have had to have been someone really inspirational, to get me thinking in that way. But I never came across those people. And I guess what I want to say about that is, people who come and listen to this call, those are the people who are interested and looking. And I wasn't then.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I guess it was what you would call just my development, and some people are, maybe they've had the background, the parents, whoever, to help move them forward. And then you've got some parents who are wanting to move their kids forward and the kids don't want it. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
such a mix. For me, yeah, it didn't even occur, didn't even come across my radar at all. I think it was a bit of a late bloomer, but I will say, I did take a position. It was a kind of a high level position, um, in nursing where it really wasn't the right one for me. It was a combination of I didn't know myself.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And it wasn't the right one for me. So this was when I was still working on in the hospital, in the medical, physical health part. So I had this position for a few months and I didn't know enough to know that, hey, this isn't right for me. So this business of, as you brought up earlier, self-awareness, it's everything. It's absolutely everything. So I ended up quitting slash getting, fired, and it was I felt very humiliated, although I found out well, not years later, sometime not too long later, that the position I was in had been the kind of scapegoat position in that role. So it was a mix of a toxic environment, but also a big part of it was I had no business in that position, but I didn't know myself enough to know.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where, self-compassion has to come in. There's a woman named Kristen Neff. She's got a website called selfcompassion.org. It's so important for us to develop that self-compassion because, back in the day, what we were afraid of was, the saber-toothed tiger wanting to eat us. Um, and we better, be on the alert and be ready to run. And that would get our emotions right through the roof and we're ready to run. Nowadays, it's threats to our self-concept. So if, let's say, somebody here was in a job that it didn't go well, it's so important to, rather than judge and, crucify oneself, to kind of go, okay, what happened here, and to be very compassionate with ourselves so that we can get, brush ourselves off and pick ourselves up and go again. So, so important. Luckily for me, my one of my sisters sent me a tape of Brian Tracy. He was originally Canadian and he was a big motivational business person. I think he's still around today. And she got me to listen to his tapes. Back in the day, it was tapes, and with a list of questions in it. And so some of the questions were, okay, what would you do if you had $1 million? What's the one thing that you do that, gives you more joy than anything else? What's the one thing that you would do if you knew you couldn't fail? Things like that. And he had a list of about 6 of them. And I spent quite a bit of time on it. And I came up with, in the end, I would want to be a psychotherapist, and I would want to do public speaking. Now that was approximately 30 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And ever since then, I just kept following that path, baby stepping it forward, like moving in that direction. But again, going zigging and zagging
Mm-hmm.
and whatnot. But having that really helped me. And the other thing that helped me was I went into a bookstore a couple of days after this happened, went into a bookstore, and I saw a book called You Can't Afford the Luxury of a Negative Thought. And I thought, what? Wow, like amazing. So, and I had known from studying, Albert Ellis that, we could choose our thoughts, but I just thought, wow, you can't afford the luxury of a negative thought. It's kind of like it's kind of like a cry to arms or whatever, a call to arms about,
Mm-hmm.
listen, don't go there. It's not going to do you any good, and
Mm-hmm.
I was so fortunate for that, because I could have seen things going terribly wrong, me getting into quite a funk that I may have taken quite a long time to get out of.
Right. And
Yeah.
if I may say so, and please correct me if it's not the way that you view it, but
Mm.
with that happening and the nature of what the role was meant to be in the long run, and then your sister sending you those cassettes and you finding that book, it almost seems like this bad thing actually turned into an advantage for your career.
You know what? That's exactly right. Because now I look back, at the time, I felt, humiliated because people are going to look, it was a high profile position.
Yeah.
But now I look at it and I go, thank goodness that happened, because otherwise I found out later, actually, the person who was in the position before me was a superstar, an absolute champion, but that she got worn right into the ground, like,
Wow.
and she was excellent at it. But the biggest thing was what it pushed me, the universe pushed me to figure out what I was really meant to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I remembered that I had this idea when I went back to get my degree. I found out that what a nurse that I was taking they call it the post basic Bachelor of Science in Nursing. So all of us were already RNs. But I was quite surprised. One of the nurses was, yeah, she was going to work in a clinic and she was going to practice psychotherapy. And I'm like, well, how could she do that? And then, okay, she can do that, but I guess I can't, because I've already, said that I'm doing this. And I allowed myself absolutely zero room to even consider it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, this was definitely meant to happen. And it was one of the best things that's ever happened to me.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
I have the one last negative question, I guess, on here. Um,
Mm,
but it's surrounding something that we've discussed previously,
yeah.
and it's
Any question is fine. You go for it, girl.
perfect.
Yeah.
It's surrounding challenges that you've faced, and it may be more than this one, but you have mentioned as a nurse the bullying, the misogyny in the healthcare field as well. Do you care to kind of dive into that? Or are there other challenges that you'd like to bring to light instead, or on top of having to face those in your career?
Yeah. Well, in that position that I had mentioned, the brief time I was in it, it turned out I had been bullied, but I didn't recognize it till years later.
Okay.
I mean, it was Wow. It was like many years later, like at least 15 or so years later. Like, cause it just didn't occur to me. Um, I guess what I want to say about it is that, you know, sometimes people think the world is getting worse. I think the world is getting better. Sometimes I think we think the world is getting worse because when one bad thing happens, across the world in some small town, we find out about it in 5 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Yeah.
Um, but I think the world is getting better. Like some of these issues, for example, bullying, was never discussed
Mm-hmm.
ever. You know, and then, you might hear about kids being bullied at school. I mean, as far as I know, there was nobody ever interceded, you know, to help out. I mean, I suppose there's probably people listening and thinking, well, yeah, I did help out. But the thing is, now there's a much more concerted effort, to recognize people's rights, especially and in addition to people who are, um, what's the word I'm looking for, Lynn? Minority groups, for instance, just the whole LGBTQ, trans, all of those different areas, other minorities, based on, you know, sorry, based on, um, being in minorities, being discriminated against, that's not acceptable anymore. I mean, definitely still happens, but the word is out that it's not acceptable anymore, and people are taking action. There's things being done about it. Even in the way that we fill out our forms these days,
Mm-hmm.
we're kind of catching up and start, acknowledging, gender, things like that, and just having more awareness of diversity
Mm-hmm.
in the world. So yeah, I guess that's kind of how I see it now, is there's more eyes being opened, and we're making an effort to get up to speed with what we don't know. The younger generation is much more conscious,
Mm-hmm.
which is a wonderful thing. Um, yeah.
It is, and it's always the hope that, especially challenges like that, you went through it, and the hope is someone else won't have to, um, because there's more progression in the world.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, like it's just not, being tolerated, or people are, well, I say people are more aware of their rights. I mean, I work with clients who don't know their rights, and it has so much to do with their upbringing,
Mm.
um the situation that they grew up in, um generational trauma, for instance, where some kids learned that, if they pleased everybody around them, then they would get by, and that would lead to, having difficulty, speaking up as adults. Like it was very adaptive as children, it got them through, but then as adults, having difficulty self-defining, like this is who I am and how I feel. I disagree with you. Having trouble saying no, feeling guilty about saying no. But again, there's so much more information out there about
Mhm.
that. Like all these podcasts, all these different shows. There's just so much more information out there now. And now it's a matter of, people being able to access it.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Absolutely. And with everything that you've accomplished in your career, and this is not an easy question, I realize that, but I'm gonna ask it anyway.
Go for it.
What would you consider to be your biggest success factor?
Yeah. My biggest success factor, is looking at where I am, in my life compared to where I think I could have been.
Mhm.
and seeing how much um, learning all the things that I have about positive psychology, about emotional fitness, about positive self-talk, about the impact that, we create heaven or hell between our ears, and learning to really put that into practice, about, universal laws and how the mind works, and being committed to making the most of it, but not in a trying to get to the top of a mountain, but in a way of, I guess I'd say I measure success based on how joyful I am. I feel
Mhm.
that, people talk about manifestation, manifesting things, law of attraction. Well, to me, the number one manifestation is feeling good,
Mhm.
because we don't get anything done if we're not feeling good.
Yeah, and that's a really good measuring stick, I think. And it's kind of, as you've mentioned, we don't talk about just being able to enjoy life, and that maybe being content is the goal, the sustainable goal. Um, and as you've mentioned, you've had a lot of changes through your life, in your career. I'm sure you've had to make a lot of sacrifices along the way. Can you talk about those and whether or not those were worth it looking back?
Yeah, I was um, thinking about that. To tell you the truth, so I guess again, like I've got these, I guess, some really key messages, and one of them is um if you follow your bliss, then everything else comes together. And I would like you to repeat your question, please.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
It's sacrifices that you've had to make along the
right,
way. Hmm.
right. Okay, thanks. Um, so if you're following your bliss, like, in other words, when I found psychology, it was just like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Now, there were times when, times that were challenging, especially when I thought, okay, I'm going to get into business. That was challenging. But I wouldn't call them sacrifices. I mean, absolutely not. Really, what they did for me was help me grow. And it turns out, like, later in life, not when I was really young, but later in life, it's a really high value of mine, is
Hmm.
is personal growth, me becoming that best version of myself. Um, me doing the things I want to do, growing, um, learning how to visualize myself doing things, doing affirmations, changing the way I'm thinking so that I can grow into, doing the things that I want to do, because that makes life fun,
Hmm.
So I wouldn't say these were sacrifices. Like sticking my neck out a bit, trying new things. Yeah, there's times when, it was maybe not a good fit. What I've learned, especially through studying universal laws, is that we can script ahead everything that we want. We can plan it ahead in our mind. And it's not just through universal laws, it's through self-talk. It's through, none of this stuff is new. Barbara Fredrickson, she was a researcher, or she is a researcher on positivity. She started studying it, researching it, and writing about it years ago. And people thought, oh, she's just so fluffy. You should be talking about more, serious things. Um, but it turns out that no, this is what really helps us to keep growing, to broaden, to build. Um, she talks about experiencing the upward spiral.
Hmm.
When we feel good, we're more creative. It's like we're a flower that opens up. We've got our blinders off. We're more creative, we're more imaginative, we're more willing to reach out to other people. So this is all, again, part of things that I've learned. Like, when the positive psychology conference came to Ottawa, I went and volunteered. I mean, I could call that a sacrifice, except I was like, oh, this is amazing being around all these amazing people. And we spent months preparing for it, like doing training, learning different things. So I think if you're following your bliss, it's not going to feel like a sacrifice.
Mm-hmm.
Now sometimes you'll if you don't prepare emotionally for something, which we often don't, it's better too. And I teach a lot about that. Um, yeah, we can end up, with tough situations, but we learn, hopefully learn from it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would say it vastly has enriched my life, and I'm doing things now um that for me, not comparing me to anybody else, but just me to me, it's made my life way more interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Like I started studying solution focused brief therapy in February. I've absolutely fallen in love with it. I'm in groups with people from all around the world, right? It's
That's
awesome. And we're all a bunch of keeners, right? Because we love talking about it and we want to do our best at it. And then I started a business course in August, which I'm continuing with. It's a business course about, getting your message out there,
Mhm.
marketing, and a big part of it is about mindset. So I think I want to also add that I think sometimes people will read a book or go to a workshop or, read something on Facebook or whatever, and they think that, okay, I know all about, positive thinking and, attitude and all that. It's actually a lifetime process. It's
Mhm.
like, I'm not going to brush my teeth once. It's a lifetime process, and there's so much cool stuff to learn. But honestly, I didn't used to think this way. I remember when I graduated from and got my degree in nursing, at our little party, one of the profs got up there and said, okay, now the next step is your master's degree. And I felt quite insulted. I'm like, can't we just enjoy this? I didn't go on to get my master's, but I have gone, but because I found what I loved, I'm I'm just like a sponge.
Mhm.
And there's just so many ways to follow your bliss, especially now with the internet and
Yeah.
so much shared information globally. It's possible. Yeah.
I think it's fantastic that you're still finding new things that and I think a lot of people will be very impressed with the amount of things that you've learned, and you dove into all these different areas to build what you have now, and you're still doing it. So given that,
Yeah.
and what you know about yourself and your new business, where do you see yourself in 5 to 10 years?
Um, at this time, in 5 to 10 years, well, at the moment, I would say it's kind of a lifestyle business in the sense that I'm now a grandmother to twins
Mhm.
and ecstatic that they live nearby and that I'm able to, you know, be helpful, be influential there. Um, 5 to 10 years from now, I'm planning to start a YouTube channel soon, um, or a YouTube channel or some other mechanism to get the word out because I just believe that if people understood that they themselves could do so much to feel better and therefore have a positive impact on others, the world would be a much better place. And so for my clients and also for those who cannot afford counseling, I'm going to be starting this channel to teach these things that are life changing. They're life
Mhm.
changing and help people feel better about themselves. And the reason we do anything is because we think it's will help us feel better. Um, yeah. So that's a big piece of what I want to do. It just totally changed my life. And so I'd like to help others um through doing that. 10 years from now, well, this is a cool thing is when you are following your bliss, you can just keep going, right?
Mhm.
Keep going with it. So I suspect that I will be doing workshops, possibly doing retreats. I'll still be working with couples. I'll be working with individuals. Continuing to just share the message that we can feel good in spite of circumstances that we don't like. And people may think, what is she talking about? What I'm talking about is that we all know that there are lots of terrible things going on in the world. And we have the opportunity to contribute in some way. We may have. And that's great. But what happens a lot of time is people are watching television shows and repeated conversations about the problem, and it ends up bringing them down, and there's nothing they can do about that. So it's really important for us to be very careful about what we allow in here, because this is like our temple. Heaven and heaven and hell are created here. And if I feel so depressed for people in another country for what they're going through, then I can't be present for myself, for my kids, for my grandkids, for my community, for my clients. And so that's where I learned and now share about being very, very particular about what we put our focus our attention on. So we can feel good in spite of external circumstances. That doesn't mean we don't care. It just means we're taking care of ourselves so that we can take care of our little corner of the world.
Finding that balance. I think it's wonderful, especially now. It's been a heavy few years. I think that a lot of minds, I think, go to like, well, it's just getting worse, and easy to get sucked in and get depressed about it, as opposed to stay healthy and see what you can do in your own little way. You can't help if you're not helping yourself, right?
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah. I know when the Twin Towers went down back in the day, I watched that happen. Like, it went down once, I turned off the television. That's something people can do right away to help get into the habit of focusing on things that feel good. Address the ones that don't. Do what you can to help, and then get into what feels good. And when we do that, we're creating new neural pathways in our brain, and we're training ourselves to focus on what's good, and therefore that improves our mood. And if my mood is up, then I can have a positive impact on other people. And then when they're not having a great mood, I don't have to jump on that bandwagon. I can recognize that they're having a difficult time. They maybe haven't learned about this, but I can at least maintain my mood.
It's so important. And now I want to give you another little challenge as well, is beyond the 5 to 10 years.
Yeah.
If you could have the Marian life of your dreams, what would you see? What are your long-term goals for your life? It doesn't have to be just for work, but for your life.
My long-term goals, I would continue doing what I do. Continue and possibly add more things like interviews, doing more teaching, finding more novel ways to get the word out, encouraging, getting the word out and encouraging people as much as possible to being influential in getting people to recognize how valuable it is to that attitude is everything, really. That mindset is everything. That's the only thing we have control over, and we don't need anyone else's cooperation to do it, right? We could just do that all on our own. let me think about this for a second. Yeah, I would like to do groups, to do more teaching. I think if no, I shouldn't say if, when I get the channel up and running, I think that will keep me busy for a very, very long time. I also want to continue focusing on working with couples. And that would include, issues including parenting, um, improving relations, marriage preparation, helping people, start off on the right foot. But the one thing, I guess the biggest thing that seems to be an issue, a global issue, is people feeling that they're not enough and not knowing what to do about it. And then there can be, so there's that. And so that I would say that's my biggest, I'm a cheerleader at heart. Okay, so I think that would be my biggest thing, is to keep forwarding that message, and also forwarding the message that we might feel powerless, but we're not.
Mm-hmm.
And but I didn't just wake up one day and figure it out. I had to have access to the information, right? And I had to be, interested in having that information. So it didn't just come to me. I wasn't born into that kind of an environment. Well, I don't think anybody was, to tell you the truth. Like, what am I trying to say here? It needs to be taught. It needs to be more accessible. It's becoming a lot. All this stuff is becoming more accessible. Like even in schools now with the kids, they're learning how to soothe themselves, how to regulate their emotions, how to calm down their nervous system. One thing, one piece of all this is this feeling we can have of that, other people are responsible for what we're going through, like blaming others for our situation. And this is the cause of wars, right? It's cause of
Mm-hmm.
so much um, distress and crisis and whatnot. And I think that's one of the biggest things that we can all learn is um, that when we take responsibility, and I'm not talking about, terrible things that have happened to people, but in general day-to-day life, recognizing that we can take responsibility for things, and that blaming others puts us in a one down position, and then we can't resolve the issue. So learning about setting boundaries, learning about what I'm okay with, what I'm not okay, learning how to express that in a way that's receivable.
Mm-hmm.
All those things. There's just actually so many topics, eh? So many things to talk about.
And it's what I hear from that is taking your power back, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Taking your power back. Like when we're born, it's like we kind of knew this, but just going through the rough and tumble of life, and everybody's got their own nervous system, their emotions, their reactions to things. So we're kind of all affecting each other. And kids interpret things, like maybe someone gave them a dirty look, or maybe they were mistreated. Um, or just things that people come up with are kooky thinking, deciding that, oh, people don't like me. So if I'm being shy, no one's coming towards me. So now I think people don't like me, all that kind of stuff. Like, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think that probably speaks to a lot of people of having to make that transition.
Yes. Yeah. And that, that ends up leading to, our concept of ourselves. And if we can learn that self-concept isn't even true, it's not even ours, it's mostly negative. It's inherited. It's, yeah, being able to bust through that, and the sooner the better,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because some of us have been, carting around unhelpful beliefs, into our 60s and 70s and stuff. So the sooner the better. And that self-compassion is such a big one.
Mm-hmm. Most
And
definitely.
other compassion.
Yes.
Yeah. So, you know, sometimes people say, well, you know, love makes the world go round. And then other people say, well, love isn't enough. Well, to me, love is, it's not, I mean, it's a feeling, but it's more than a feeling because, like, you know, feelings come and go, right? But to me,
Mm-hmm.
it's a decision, it's a choice, it's an attitude, and it's an action word.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I love that, but it's an action word.
Mhm.
It makes it
Yeah.
also be an increment, right? Um, Something you can give in different ways, and it can be a little bit, a lot, medium, and or what you can at the moment.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, I think you're saying that it's kind of it's about intention.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
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 Ah, amazing.
Yeah.
Um, I want to shift a little bit now to talking about the intricacies of the job itself,
Mm-hmm.
of what you do now.
Mm-hmm.
If someone were to say to you, Marian, I want to do what you do today, what do you feel would be the best educational preparation for them to do the job you do now? Even, in terms of the business and where you are now, if they want to do a straight line and not have uh,
Yeah.
the
Well,
path that you
that's,
had,
you know
which is,
what, the hmm
yeah, it's difficult.
yeah. And the cool thing is, I guess like it how can I put it? When I look back, it doesn't seem so difficult, but definitely, yes, there were times when I'm like, okay, I don't know which way is up. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know. I don't even know anything about computers. You
Mm.
know, I don't know about social media. I don't know about, yeah. And I mean, I'm still learning. So if someone came to me and they want to do exactly what I'm doing,
Mm-hmm. What would you
okay.
recommend? Go to
Hmm.
school and do this? Do
Yeah.
you recommend they take extracurriculars, they do other things, courses you've
Sure.
taken, workshops, you've taken all these different things? What would you say, you know what, you should go and do these things based on my experience?
Yeah, I think it depends on the age and the experience of the person. Like if someone is a mature student, they could have a ton of life experience
Mm-hmm.
um under their belt. Whereas if let's say if it was a younger person, let's say they're still in like high school, or they're in, say, their second week of a second year of a work program, I would say get some volunteer experience.
Mm-hmm.
Like you don't even know if you are going to like this,
Right.
right? You know, getting getting some experience, like going to CMHA, seeing if they have any volunteer opportunities or if they have any I can't remember what the term, like a support worker position or volunteering just to participate in something, help out, like um anything, just to kind of get involved in the culture and see how things are done.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Definitely, I would say, yeah, any kind of public speaking is awesome. Any opportunities to do, you know, just a little bit of teaching. Definitely interview people who are doing the kind of work you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
People love it, and I would say I did not think this way at all when I was younger. But if, but I would love to help somebody if they were, let's say they're in school. I would definitely tell them, like, those who are actually doing the work that you do, they would be feel very privileged usually and honored
Mm-hmm.
to have you interview them, sit down with you, tell you everything, you know, all about what they did, what they've learned, what it's like. So I would absolutely do that. I'm a registered nurse psychotherapist, so um, there are um, there are quite a few of us in Ontario. In Alberta, it was really big, like um, nurses who were in private practice, and Ontario is catching up. Um, there's actually a group for nurse psychotherapists in Ottawa. There's a Facebook page for for RNs who are in private practice. And there's a lot of support there. There's a lot of information. There's tons of courses. Like, it's fabulous. And even for those who are RNs thinking about getting into
Mm-hmm.
psychotherapy. So there's that. And then um, let's say someone decided they want to go to university and because they want to be psychotherapists, they could go into social work program, they could go into the nursing program, they could go into occupational therapy. There are degrees in counseling. You just have to be careful that if it's not part of a college, then you could have trouble getting employment later unless you wanted to be in private practice. And I'm not quite sure about those specific degrees.
Mm-hmm.
One of my students, a student that I had when I was at Serenity, she was in the CYC program, the Child and Youth Care program. It's quite a challenging program. I taught there last year at Algonquin for a semester. And anyway, it's quite a challenging program. She did a practicum with us and she was amazing. She could have, just to give ideas of what person could do, she could have if she'd wanted to, she could have started a business, providing services.
Okay.
Just, with that position. What she decided to do, she was a superstar. She is a superstar. She decided to go to St. Paul's and get her master's in counseling. And that's where she is today. So, it's like everybody has their own like route to get places.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a million things. Or let's say they figure, okay, they don't have the money, the time, or whatever they don't, that's not them. They don't want to get a degree. I believe there are other routes that I'm thinking about. I'm not sure of the name of this, but I think it's called Canadian Counseling Association, something like that. I'm not sure what they offer, but if people Google, they can find, all kinds of things. But the other thing I was going to say is if a person likes the idea of this sort of thing, like being of service to others, they could explore coaching.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So that's another option.
It's great that there's a lot of different ways to get in there and find your footing.
Yeah.
How would you describe the industry's culture for anyone who says, yeah, I think this is for me?
Okay. Oh, I just want to finish, just want to say,
Mm-hmm.
be willing a little more about volunteering. Be willing to volunteer like on with things that kind of gets you out there and get you around people especially if you're not used to that. Like all of the volunteer work that I've done that involved me kind of taking center stage and having to step up. And then Toastmasters, public speaking, that was invaluable. I would recommend all those kind of things. And say if they wanted to work with children, get out there and get some experience working with kids or working with kids and parents like that. And even to get into university, that's a great thing to have on your resume.
Right.
Okay. What was the last question
Oh, it was
that you just asked?
so for someone who's interested and says, like, I think this is for me, how would you describe the industry's culture?
Okay. It's when I was in Alberta, I was at a clinic and we had this specialized team. And so we saw our clients individually. We did run groups and we had a consult group every week and it was really awesome. But now, being in private practice so of course that's my lens now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when you're in private practice, it can be quite solitary. Well, it is quite solitary if you're strictly seeing clients. And you have to be okay with that. But there's also lots of support. You could get supervision, get into groups, being able to make sure that you're getting the support that you need to provide the best care that you can. There's mental health professionals Ottawa group, but I digress. how would I say the culture is? I think it's so much depends on you. If you decide that you're going to practice what you preach, get out there and, take good care of yourself, um, manage your emotional fitness, continue to learn and grow. For me, and then live that.
Mhm.
Then to me, it's a wonderful, career, but I can't really say, exactly what the culture is, except for the people that I'm in groups with. The people that I'm involved with, they're very keen, very interested, real learners. I think that some of the challenges with working in nonprofit, uh, although you can learn a ton and be with amazing people, funding is always a huge issue, and figuring out, how to manage your resources, and then,
Mhm.
applying for grants and things like that. That's um, definitely a challenge.
I can imagine. And
Hmm.
have you noticed any trends or any changes that could impact the field that people should be aware of if they're interested in pursuing this?
Um, what I'm seeing now is, when I worked in Alberta, when I was working for what they called the Calgary Health Region at the time, I was part of a union, and we were properly paid and got benefits and things like that. Um, in private practice, um, or okay, so in nonprofits, the pay is not good. However, there's a great feeling of that you're being of service to others who are in need. Something to consider as well, though, in my opinion, is, um, like many other services that are provided by women,
Mhm.
oftentimes, even women themselves, um, need to learn, that they're worthy and deserving of being well paid for the service that they offer.
Mhm.
And that's where, if you do get into private practice, you want to make sure that you get all the support that you can, and recognize your worth and your value. In a lot of the service industries, which are largely populated by women, let's say teachers, as well as psychotherapists, there can be a real feeling of having to give and give and give and give, and burnout is a thing. So
Mhm.
both for nurses in the hospitals, nurse psychotherapists, other psychotherapists, teachers, and that's something that, um, definitely I would advise a person to address, to make sure that they recognize their worth, um, and get support for that. And there is support for that.
Oh, good.
Yeah, there's support for that. Like, for instance, this nurse psychotherapist group.
Mhm.
There's a lot of support for recognizing that, this isn't well, I don't even, well, I shouldn't even say it. I was going to say something, but I'm not going to say it. But this isn't, it takes a lot of training, education, life experience, um, and the years of experience that a person has put into it, and everything that they have to offer, and they deserve to be, um, properly, paid for their
Mhm.
services. So, yeah.
And you mentioned burnout. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
in your experience, the
Mm-hmm.
people that you've known, do you feel like that's the main reason that someone would decide to leave this field, or have you noticed another reason that people might decide to move on to something else?
I think burnout would be it.
Mhm.
Now there's all sorts of people in the world. with all sorts of, issues, and some are very severe. And there's something called vicarious trauma. If working with a client who's been through a lot of trauma, that could be, very difficult to deal with. And it's so important to make sure that you have the ability or the opportunity to debrief, and also learn and practice really good self-care. And a big part of self-care is high quality thinking, right? And putting yourself first, prioritizing your health, spiritual, emotional, physical, all of it. Taking time for yourself, rather than feeling like, I have to do it because no one else is going to do it. These people need me. How easy it can be to get into that, especially, those who don't have the means, just going above and beyond with hours. And it can be so easy to get into, what's the word? Workaholism. And I know that could be the case for any industry. So yeah, that's a danger. So it's really important to do that self-monitoring. Am I taking my holidays? Am I taking time out? As adults, we sometimes we can get so focused on the tasks, and we forget that fun is a huge aspect of mental health. Having fun. Really serious.
Do you find that in your field, because there is such a want to help other people, and the need or feeling that you need to keep giving, have you seen some people having a hard time with having fun, and maybe having that guilt that they should be putting that energy somewhere else?
Oh yeah. Yeah. And like I say, it's not I wouldn't say it's specific to an industry. It may be more common with women, because of the way we've been socialized to be the helpers. But I mean, I know people in government who have been affected by that. A lot of it has to do with the way we've been raised, the way that we interpret things, people feeling that that's how they demonstrate their value. And so we wanted, be aware, be mindful of what we're doing and why we're doing it. And again, speaking about the ability to say no. And people need support to be able to do that. It's because it's not just, oh, well, follow this cookie cutter recipe. You just say no. Well, there's emotions involved. There's the guilt. There can be guilt involved. There can be shame involved. It can be really challenging. So, therapists need therapy and coaching too. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And nurses too. Like everybody needs it. Everybody needs that support and learning, and, helping to integrate, what it is that they need to do to feel good and to function at their best, to be the best version of themselves. And, most of us haven't learned these things.
Yes.
And that's okay. That's just the way it is.
Yeah, a lot of good pieces of advice for introspection, and how even just that can even just help with self-comfort, just knowing that you're okay being yourself. Sometimes just realizing like, oh, this is how I feel. Well, sometimes it's okay.
Do you want to say more about that?
Well, you were saying, not having the toxic positivity, but also having, using positivity to your advantage. being able to identify how you feel and realizing that it's okay, and having the time to feel it before you start the work
Yes.
against that, just that,
Yes.
and just learning that sometimes in life, for some people it's early, for some people it's later, um not having that guilt of feeling what you're feeling. And so, just saying that, therapists need therapists, and healthcare workers do as well. um
Yeah.
I think it's just kind of trying to release that superhero mentality
Oh, yes.
can be
Yes.
difficult. And I can't
Yes.
imagine how it is for people in those fields, because people not in those very important fields feel that way too.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And, I'm glad you brought that up because I love the work I do, and I am not here to, pontificate or tell people what to do. I work with them to help them figure out
Mm-hmm.
what they want to do. I mean, I do teaching as well, teach people how they can feel better, and then the content is up to them,
Mm-hmm.
you know? Yeah, and we're definitely, yeah, the client is the superhero.
Yeah.
Glad you said that. Yeah, because they've all got it within them. I mean, when we see clients, they're not at their best,
Mm-hmm.
but it's our job to we see it, and we want help the client to see it,
Mm-hmm.
excavate that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because yeah, usually when they come in, they're they need help with something, they're not at their best, but that's a temporary time.
And how do you separate yourself? You had mentioned there is such a thing as, identifying too much with someone's trauma or whatnot and taking that home. How
Hmm.
have you been able to, what tools have you used in your life to make that separation so that you can help them without taking everything on?
Hmm. um I um would never work with kids, like kids in trauma, and front lines of trauma. Just being totally transparent here, I don't hear the stories,
Mm-hmm.
the trauma stories. I mean, in the DBT program, we would by the time clients came to us, we were their last hope, and they'd been diagnosed with just about everything, and they came to us, their histories, had already been done, and we would get the basic histories. But the work that we did there was, our number one job was to help them to function in the present moment. And we did not go into their trauma history. I do not do that now. I don't, for me, and the approach I take, I don't believe in, I do not have clients go through details of trauma.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Others do. Um, Even so, I am working with, I've worked with people, they're depressed, they're anxious, they've got stuff going on, they've got, really serious things happening. And what I have to do is know that I can feel for them. I can, you know, um, validate them, and and then it's okay in spite of all this. And I can hear, I can listen. In spite of all this, how would you rather be feeling? What
Mm-hmm.
are your best hopes? So I don't go through and have the client relive things that happen. Of course, if they want to talk about things, I am totally open to that, but taking care not for them to re-traumatize
Mm-hmm.
themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Um, But that's, yeah, but in a case like that, like say if it was a very, traumatic situation, that is where the debriefing and the support needs to come in. The emotion regulation, the self-soothing skills, whether that's doing, breathing, mindfulness exercises, exercise itself. Yeah, finding ways to kind of put that away. For myself, I have been able to just, you know, somehow find in session, help the clients find, turn to something positive.
Mhm.
Not jumping up and down positive, but kind of like helping them to get grounded, to get back to the here and now, to the present moment, and leave what's back there, leave it there. But not, yeah, not jumping in the boat with somebody. Because
Mhm.
if I feel with the client the way they're feeling, then I'm going to get depressed and I'm not going to be
Mhm.
able to help them.
Mhm.
So it's just something that I had to learn, because I knew that is what would help me to be at my best, in serving them.
Mhm.
I don't know if that's making sense or not.
Yes, absolutely.
Hmm.
It's it's what you need to do to make sure that you can keep helping without being involved directly in the same mindset as them.
Yeah, like, yeah, so I can help, but if I take on their emotions,
Mhm.
that's not helping them. What I'm trying to do is help them to tone down their emotions, still feel their feelings, but not let them overwhelm them, so that where they end up in DBT, they call it emotion mind. They're so emotionally triggered that there's no thinking going on at the same time. I want to help them get into wise mind.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, it would be interesting for you to talk to someone who, who directly deals with trauma. Would be interesting to hear what other things they do. I will say, for anybody listening to this call, there's also things called, and you might be interested too, creating a self-soothing kit, where you get yourself a basket and you put stuff in it to to make yourself feel better. Like when, something goes wrong and you're feeling like, oh, whatever, blah. You like at times like that, you don't feel like, you don't think about, oh, I need this or I need that. But you can get a basket together and put things in it, like this little squishy brain,
Mhm.
squeezing it, right? It just helps to bring down that like intense emotional, like the physiology itself,
Yeah.
right? Your heart is pounding, you're sweating, you're, breathing fast or whatever, just kind of calming that down. So squeezing one of these, or having some kind of aromatherapy gum, like maybe cinnamon gum, or like a soft, a, a soft, fluffy little stuffed animal or feather, music. What else? Oh, something like a cookie,
Mhm.
chocolate bar, like all these soothing things to help to kind of, and then in addition to that, breathing exercises. So often we hold our breath and then our anxiety goes through the roof.
Mhm.
Um, Sometimes people will hold ice, and you can hold ice and hold your breath, like for say 30 seconds, and hold some ice and then breathe. And it just kind of helps to slow down the heart rate, bring down the blood pressure, obviously bring down the respiratory rate because you're holding your breath, and just to kind of get recalibrated. Because
Mhm.
once our physiology goes crazy, well, then that makes us more anxious, right? Or more
Yeah.
angry or whatever. So just trying to kind of calm down that nervous system, or go out for a run,
Mhm.
or put on, music or watch a show or like whatever it takes to kind of get grounded again.
Mm-hmm. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, the basket. If if you had to pick one thing,
Mm.
what would you say that you like the most about your work?
Seeing people feel better and recognize that they can do this, that they've got it. Um yeah,
And I
helping people
sense
feel
that
better.
it's I sense that it's probably why most people are attracted to this field.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the gold.
Hmm.
That's the gold. And so yeah, the other thing I would tell clients, not clients, but potential people who want to get into the field, there can be times where you're not getting the feedback and you might never get that feedback. So, you got to be okay with that,
Mm. Mm.
right?
Yeah, to
And you
find
got to
something
be
else.
able to validate yourself.
Right.
That you did good work. We're not here to fix anybody. They are capable of fixing themselves and making their own decisions as to how they're going to move forward. And we're not here to tell people what to do or, put our advice on them.
Right.
Mhm. Even though we think we might know sometimes.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Well, Marian, I want to thank you so much for joining me today. I think you gave so much fantastic insight and really useful advice as well. But before I let you go, I would love to hand you the floor and give you some time to give advice or words of encouragement for anyone who's considering joining this field or people who are just starting off.
Okay. It goes back to following your bliss. And give yourself the time to, journal, figure out if this is, what you'd like to do and if it might be what you want to do, check it out, interview people, give me a call. I'll get you connected or, I'll speak with you. Um, and if this isn't it, find out, what it is for you. I've really embraced the idea, especially this year, that we're on a joyful journey. What I mean by that is it's so important to find the joy in the moment. It's not about getting the degree or, the coaching or the excelling at the exam or whatever. Like, yeah, that's all great and we want it, but doing what we can to enjoy the moment and not and honor the moment rather than, oh no, we're waiting for the next thing and the next thing. And so that fits with following your bliss because that's where the bliss comes from. It's not from the creation, like having the thing done, it's the creating. So on your journey, do what you can to enjoy it because you'll look back and you'll remember the great times. That's easy because they're over and this you had solutions to them, right? But doing what you can to enjoy the process now and do it and stay in the moment, that is so powerful. And just, yeah, enjoying life, that's what it's all about.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome. I'll give you I've got two more quotes.
Please.
um Eckhart Tolle, he wrote the book the Power of Now, the power of being in the moment, basically. And he said, make friends with the present moment as if you had chosen it yourself. And that's another one that I'm really hanging on to. Because
Hmm.
if I'm like awake at, 2 a.m, I can be really ticked about it, or I can be like, I'm going to make friends with us. That's a whole level, that's a whole area that I've just now controlled and got like just settled right down.
Mm-hmm.
Now when it comes to choosing a career, make the decision, right? Look, do your research, interview people, and then make the decision right. And
Uh-huh.
just give it all you got, and remember to have fun. Yeah.
That's a big one.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, perfect. Well, thank you so much for joining me and providing all these insights. I'm sure our listeners are taking note and we'll put those into practice.
Thank you so much, Lynn. It was a real privilege to be here with you today.
Thank you.